Today it's all about curves, EQ curves that is. I'm going to show you this awesome 2-for-1 trick that's not only going to help your frequency detection, but get better mix translations. Hey, what's up everybody? EJ here. Thank you so much for all the great responses to our first video. And I'm very excited to be back here making a second video. I want to shout out one of our watchers, Pigeon1916, who referenced that he's new to the community, so welcome, and feeling very green. And what I would say is to embrace that. Some of my favorite memories were when I first started out, not really knowing or following the industry acceptable ways to EQ, compress, or saturate. And during one of my first sessions, I accidentally routed all my drums to the wrong EQ. The gain staging was wrong, and I completely blew the drums up through the EQ sound. But to this day, that was one of my absolute favorite drum sounds and something I would never have done if I had the competency at that time to properly route to the right EQs. So welcome to the community, and I am very, very excited to hear about all your future endeavors as a mixing and mastering engineer. So I wish you the best of luck. All right, so as I said, today it's all about curves. And I'm sure you've heard phrases like the mix sounds scooped, the mix sounds hyped, the mix sounds muddy. Well, today I'm going to show you this awesome 2-for-1 method that not only is going to help make us more sensitive to changes in different frequency areas throughout a mix or even individual instruments, but also will serve to help us improve our overall mix translation. As I said, I came up with this method because for a long time I was wondering whether I was developing more as a mix engineer or a triathlete, with all the printing of my mix that I had to do and running to different reference locations like cars, loud systems, clubs, trying to remember what I was hearing and then racing back to make the changes. So through a couple simple EQs on your DAW with some different EQ curves, you can mimic different listening environments that will absolutely help you to improve your translation and get that mix hitting on any system it's playing on. So what do you say we jump into the DAW and get started?
Okay, friends, let's start with a quick listening challenge. This is a song called Burning Sage by the group Motherway, just released, and I'm going to play a little snippet of it. And then I'm going to follow that with the same snippet, but with an EQ popped on. And this EQ only has one move, one simple move, and we're going to see if we can identify how that EQ move is impacting the mix and whether or not we can guess the general area on the frequency spectrum that this EQ move was made. Now, we don't have to worry about thinking in terms of specific EQ, like, oh, there's too much 200 or there's too much 8K. That's all preference. As long as the EQ at the end of the day is serving the song, there's plenty of songs that I think we all find either too bright or too bassy that are selling millions and millions of records. So there is no perfect EQ. It's just about making sure that everything that we do really at the end of the day supports the song. So what I would suggest is starting by listening to one component of the music. Now, since, spoiler alert, there's vocals in this song and the vocals are meant to be intelligible and listened to, we can start by latching onto the vocal. The snare drum or the bass drum would be another great alternative if you were looking for something different, but I'd say the vocal. And the first thing you'd want to take note of, again, wouldn't be try and quickly break down its frequency analysis, but rather get a sense of where this vocal and the whole mix in general is supposed to feel like it's sitting in relation to you. Does it feel like a soupy mix where everything is kind of pushed back or glued together, which I would describe this mix. This mix was really not meant to be, super, super clean, carved out, and have every, individual component feel like it's, standing on its own with a bunch of space around it, but rather everything kind of glued together and a little bit kind of glossed over. We start by listening to the main component, its proximity to us, whether it feels like it's in our face or it feels like it's pushed back. And next would be the timbre of it. Once that EQ is popped on, does it feel like the proximity changed of what I was listening to in relationship to where it was? And does it feel like the timbre changed? Did it get brighter or did it feel like it's now a little more muted? So enough talking. Here we go. This is the listening example without any EQ.
I paid my room lavender. Lights my lather.
Okay, now here it is with the EQ. notes A, B it. Off.
I paid my room lavender. That's my lather.
Okay. Votes, guesses. It's election day, so here we go. All right. The mix was what we called scooped with this EQ. So about 9 dB and pulling it out around 1100, but we are, kind of touching in the 400 range all the way up to just a little bit under 4K. So what we may have noticed when we were doing that was when the EQ was popped in, the vocal and your mid-ranged based instruments like the guitar took a step back. They lost some of their presence. What we did notice that we picked up was a little bit more of the sibilance of the song, of the vocal, and the top end of the song, and the bass became more pronounced because we were cutting into the mid-range of the song. So sometimes when you hear a mix identified as scooped, that is an example where we're kind of cutting the mid-range of the song. So here is a couple quick tips. These 3 EQs here used to live on my mix bus forever until I got different referencing software and until I started this little routing technique I'm about to show you. But these were the original 3 that really served me for a long time in regards to helping to identify frequency problems in my mix, and also to help improve its translation without having to print it 9,000 times and run and listen through 14, 15 different devices and try to remember what I liked and take notes and then guess when I was back in my DAW doing whatever revisions and corrections I needed to. So the first one is an EQ that rolls everything off to about 270, 300, that area. So if I pop this on and we listen to the song for a second, we can hear it sounds like we're listening to it outside a club. Now after, a couple, passes through maybe a section or two, I might start going up, if this was the multi-track, and finding particular tracks that are cluttering up this zone. So part of my choices as a mix engineer would be to decide who is going to live down here. And as we mentioned before, the intent from a production standpoint of this mix was to be a little soupier. So this area wasn't designed to be like, a very modern hard rock mix where the bass and kick drum are designed to be super clear, super punchy, and essentially be occupying the low end. We hear the acoustic guitars creeping down here, some of the electric guitars, the low end of the keyboards, even some of the vocal. This is a great way to kind of hear what is taking place down there and deciding what you want to cut. The next would be one that was kind of like my top end equivalent. So same concept, right around 3.5K on up. I'd listen. If I pop it on, this is what it sounded like. And what this helped me do was to hear if I was going overboard with my saturation. I love to saturate stuff, and I love compressing things. And as you'll see in another video that I'm going to put out, when we saturate and when we compress, we can add a lot of harmonic content, especially up in this range. And eventually it can build up to where it feels like you're looking into, a very bright sun, and make the top of the mix, feel a little harsh or fatigue the ear quicker than we'd like. So this kind of helps give me a general sense of the intelligibility of the vocal up in that area, how much spittiness, sibilance, top end of the snare, your hi-hats, acoustic guitar, like in this song, like how much those strings are cutting through the clarity, and be able to see how balanced that area is. And again, just like when we looked at the low end, I would then pop into the mix and maybe correct a few things if I felt like I was getting too much. Then the final one is, if you can guess, the mid-range. And this would almost be like an iPhone speaker. And it was kind of like my quick hack to iPhone speaker translation for a long time until I picked up the Audio Movers plugin and just started streaming the mix to my phone, which is pretty much the only device I do that with right now because it's so easy. My phone's normally sitting somewhere around me, so I don't have to print, run down to my parking garage where my car is, and do all that stuff. So here.
I paint my room lavender.
And it sounds exactly like you'd expect, a mix with the low and high cutout. So same concept. I'd go back into the mix, clean some things up if I found some things were being masked in this area, which mainly is what I'm listening for at that point, is something that's really kind of poking through there that I'm like, whoa, 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 fella, you know, there's way too much of you here at this frequency party. So getting some of that stuff out of there. But eventually, like with anything, the more we do stuff, the more we get bored of doing it the same way. And sometimes, you know, we start looking for different solutions. So I eventually created this little reference router. So in Pro Tools, for example, from one of my sends, I sent to another track that's called reference. And I am streaming the mix through that bus to this channel where I have 6 different EQs on there, and each EQ is designed to model a particular referencing environment. First EQ is the car. So this is a frequency model here that I put together that feels like I'm listening in my car, and this was kind of designed by lots of running up and down my stairs, referencing stuff. But then I found that once I kind of created this EQ curve for to mimic my car, that my car translation was much better without me having to do that. So most cars, we're going to see a bump around 60 that will stretch up, and it's, I think, to get over some of the ground hum and, you know, some of the cabin logistics. So I'm kind of somewhere around like 3.5 dBs, pretty wide. Then I'm around 300 and I'm boosting again, same thing. It's kind of a little bit of that warmth area that you get listening in a car. Little presence cut. Around 27, I'm cutting about 1.2 decibels, and then I'm rolling some of the top off. 8K, about 4 dB, and this is what it sounds like. And what made this feel like the car for me is one of the biggest issues that I had when I would listen to mixes in a car that I didn't like or didn't feel were done and needed revisions was what the car did to the low end. If the low end wasn't tight or there was a lot of extra flab in that area, it would kind of start to overshadow the rest of the mix and make the mix feel very dull and not very punchy and just really rumbly. So this is a way that I was able to pop that frequency curve in, and I can have it on a reference bus, so I can be referencing through this and then just hop up into my multi-tracks and again make a few tweaks. Now, one disclaimer that I should mention is I would not recommend with any sort of EQ curves that you're popping on, rifling through these like one after the next, after the next, after the next. First of all, you'll start hating your mix because you're going to keep hearing it with all these different EQs popped on, and they're going to be, especially if you're going from one right to the next, these drastic changes that are going to make certain things pop out that, you know, were blanketed by the other frequency curve. So now if I went to, say, for example, an iPhone mix, the top end compared to the car would feel a lot brighter. And all of a sudden I might think there's a problem there. So I would give your ear time to kind of reset before you start just rifling through these, or kind of work with the car one for a moment, go back, do some work in the mix, take a break, come back, then pop on the next one, which in this case, the next one is home stereo. And this is your proverbial smiley face EQ. It's a sweetener. It's what a lot of home systems do, where you're going to get a bump in the low end. I have one around 80 at 175 dB, and around 3K, again, almost at 2 dB, and then just a little shelf at 10K. This is designed to mimic a home stereo, very similar to the car, except a little less boomy and a little bit more intelligibility in the vocal and, you know, the definition components of instruments like guitars, snare drum, things like that. So you can hear it almost takes on a little bit of a scooped quality because some of that mid-range does step back just a pinch, and we get some of the brightness and the crispness of the 3K and up, and a little bit more of the rumble and the low end of the song down in the 80 hertz area. Next would be a smartphone speaker. This one is just a little bit hyped up as opposed to the one that I had shown earlier, where I have a little bump here around 200 and another little bump around 3K, gentle roll off at the top and a little bit of a steeper roll off at the bottom. Next, I have earbuds, and sometimes I like to entertain myself by typing different things in there, and I call them earbugs. Again, a little bit of a low bump, 80 hertz, kind of cranked up, about 4 dB. A little bit of a mid-range cut, and then a little bit of our upper mid boost here to kind of add a little crispness. And last but not least was what I termed a party speaker, like a JBL, something Bluetooth oriented. And again, listening through those, they normally have some pretty aggressive bumps in the lows to help accentuate, obviously these are being used for parties and to get over, crowd noise and things like that. So bump at 50 hertz, pretty steep. Another one at about 160 hertz, and then a little presence cut, or mid-range, excuse me. And then in our upper mids, we're gonna boost, again, very similar to a lot of the other devices that are going to try to sweeten the intelligibility areas of the song and the hype of the low end. So again, it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, if it's exactly like a JBL or if it's exactly like every car. I mean, first of all, every car is different. But what these have done for me is these different frequency curves have allowed me to quickly pop them in and out and decide whether or not it's doing something deconstructive to my mix. And that's what I would encourage you to experiment with and see if it does improve your translations. Now, as we promised, the 2-for-1 special, awesome. This is going to help level up your mixing and help improve your mixing translation. But you can also use this as an ear training game. And if you're looking for something to help get yourself focused, start dialing in your ears prior, you can take these and just kind of scramble them enough to where you forget who is who and what's going on and everything else. And God bless you if you do remember which is which. And then once you have them all nice and scrambled, you can pop the song on, play an example, and then guess which EQ curve it is. And then as you get more advanced and you feel like you're nailing those, you can each day just pop 4 or 5 EQs into your DAW, put in some random cuts and boosts, and see if you can figure it out with just listening to the mix and then popping in an EQ. And again, it's not necessarily, you're not trying to win like the frequency gold Olympic challenge with being able to detect, super specific frequencies in a mix, obviously helpful. But really, you want to begin hearing frequency in relationship to how it's impacting the art and the song that you're working on, and whether or not there are certain components that might be clouding others. And when we get used to understanding what general frequency areas can, impact our crispness of a song, or the brightness, or what tends to make the low end feel boomy as opposed to too thin, these things will help you make quicker decisions. And that's really what we're after at the end of the day, is just being able to use these as tools to sharpen our decision-making ability. If you want a copy of these EQ curves, feel free to check the description below. They'll be in a document. You can print it off and then just load them up into your EQ of choice.
All right, so I hope by watching this video, you found something useful that you can pull into your workflow. Let me know in the comments below if there's a particular environment that you find the hardest to have your mix translate well into. Until then, please like and subscribe and keep on the lookout for new videos. Have a great day.